Okay. This is quite scary. I've never done anything like this before. I probably should have tested this more, but I tested with one layer and it was not a problem. And I tested with the putty and it was not a problem. I'm more afraid of my fingers than anything else. But yeah.
So, what is ablative intumescent fireproofing?
It's actually two parts. One part is ablation, which is the loss of a layer or a part by melting or evaporating. And the second part is introluminescence, which is the swelling or charring when exposed to heat. Ablation is all about taking heat away. The first way is the borax. The borax is a hydrate, so there's water molecules which will evaporate when heat is applied to it. Each molecule that evaporates takes a little bit of heat away. The second way is the multiple layers of fiberglass. Each layer has to reach the temperature of failure before the second one can heat up. There are many practical applications of fireproofing. For example, the ablative armor in the Orion spacecraft. Or it can be used in gel form to protect an actor from a full body burn. Before I teach you how to make this material, first I'm going to go over some of the history and science associated with it. While ablative armor had been used for decades during the space race, interluminescent armor was first popularized by starlight. When exposed to a heat source, a layer of carbon foam formed on top, protecting everything below. Here's a better image of a carbon foam. You can see that it's very porous. The reason why porous is good for insulating heat is because heat requires a matter to transfer through. When the matter changes, the transfer heat is slowed or interrupted. That's why carbon foam is such a great insulator. It's difficult to get such a great carbon layer, and that's been the main barrier to entry for interluminescent fireproofing. Starlight and many of the other materials that were later patented all had to be produced in a lab. Ablative armoring, on the other hand, had kind of the opposite issue. While it's really easy to make, all you have to do is stack a bunch of layers next to each other, the issue is that there's almost no literature out there on it. In fact, when you search up ablative armoring on Google, you're more likely to find Star Trek's use of ablative armoring on the USS Defiant in Deep Space Nine than, for example, NASA's use of ablative armoring on the Orion spacecraft. Ablative armoring leads into another issue: weight and cost. The more layers you add, the more it's going to weigh and the more it's going to subsequently cost. I like to take a different approach. I only used 3 layers of fiberglass cloth, and in between each layer was the interluminescent fireproofing. When the carbon foam forms, it slows transfer of heat between each layer, which increases the longevity of the protection. Alright, so today we are going to make fireproof armor. Specifically out of fiberglass and some carbon, and some organic material that's going to form a carbon layer, which is going to protect everything underneath from fire. So I'm going to prep the fiberglass first. I taped up the edges of the fiberglass to prevent it from fraying when I'm cutting. 6 inches. Then I proceeded to mark out 6-inch squares to cut. So now we have 3 layers we want. What's going to happen is I'm going to mix up the chemicals. There's some pretty common household things: sugar, cornstarch, or any type of starch. This is an irritant. This is Botox. You can't just buy Botox on Amazon. You can't just buy it from any supplier on Amazon. You have to have the sodium borate decahydrate. Let me go into a bit more detail about that. Now listen up, because it's very important in chemistry and life. You want the good stuff, the pure stuff, not that baggie full of colors you buy at the street corner. When mixing, you have to be exact. Get it straight from the factory, so pure even Customs hasn't touched it. Now dry in the oven at 400 Celsius for 10 minutes, then slather it onto the fiberglass layers, put them together, dry that in the oven at 350 for 30 minutes, and take it out and you got your product. Now you're probably wondering, how did it perform? Now I'm going to show you. Eight seconds is not bad for a material that's only this thick. You can see the burn marks in the front compared to how few burn marks there are on the back. So I think overall the test was a success. There's still lots to be worked on. One thing I noticed was that when I was testing it, my hand was getting hit by steam. I think if I were to decrease the borax concentration, I can actually hold out against the fire longer because my hand isn't getting steam blasted, and decrease the concentration of borax, increase the concentration of starch, which increases the resistance against heat because more carbon foam is being formed.